Good afternoon, everyone. I think, first and foremost, thank you so much for your continued patronage and support towards our Putting India Back to Work campaign. I think we have done cumulatively close to 70 webinars during COVID, cutting across different industry sectors to kind of figure out a roadmap. I mean, we are all very uncertain about what's going to happen, but I think through collaboration and collective thinking, I think each one of us end up picking up some learning cues and insights about what we can go and implement in our own realms, in our own workplaces, to kind of get us all back to reviving the business as well as the economy. So today, I think in continuation, I think we've decided to come out with the industry dialogue series, wherein we will reach out to some of the key industries who actually have a huge impact in the world of work, and who have significant contribution to the employment situation in the country. And we would try and bring in experts from those representatives and have a quick fire half an hour interaction with them, asking them about the particulars about their industry, and thereon probably leave this conversation a little more prepared, a little more informed. Yes, I think it's an absolute pleasure to start this first episode of the Industry Dialogue series, focusing on e-commerce and logistics, and I could not think of anyone better than Saurav. Saurav is for you, of course, he is a seasoned professional, which he absolutely is. For me, he's an old acquaintance and friend, somebody that I have known since our initial days of starting TeamLease. And he, interestingly, while he has an extremely diverse portfolio of organization, he's always worked in organizations which are people intensive or are heavily dependent on manpower. Starting from when I met him, which is in Bharti, his stint with Whirlpool, his stint with Yum, his stint with G4S in recent times, and now, of course, Ecom, which is, you can say, which is the e-commerce is a company which is in the hot seat right now amongst whatever is going on in this country. So thank you so much, Saurav, for your consent to be part of the first inaugural episode of this series.
Hey, thanks, Ritu. Absolute pleasure, and it's always good to interact with you. And yes, I look forward to a great dialogue today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And for all your participants and audiences, I'm sure you will have a lot of questions. This is a 30-minute session, and hence don't wait on your questions. What moment you have a thought or a question, please put it in the Q&A tab and we'll pick it up towards the end. So I think let's just to begin our proceedings, Saurav. I mean, what is your current take on the situation at hand? And how do you think it's impacting the e-commerce and logistic industry?
Sure, Ritu, I mean, the pandemic is known to all and everyone's got impacted. I think India initially, we thought the lockdown would really help. Well, virus is here, it's reality. Pandemic has struck, and the way the numbers are growing in India is concerning, but I'm glad that the country is getting settled with it mentally as well, and kind of, I'm sure we'll do well in that. I mean, in terms of the financials, it's a world over phenomenon. And even India, we just read a recent report, the GDP crashed by almost like 23.9%. What is it doing to various industries? Well, a lot of industries have kind of really gone into bad times, tough times. I believe it's a blip till the time it remains, but let it be a tourism or many more industries. It is creating that trouble. For us as the e-commerce logistics industry, I think we would say that it actually catapulted the industry into many years ahead. What had to happen probably in 5, 7, 10 years is actually curtailed into just 3 to 4 years to 5 years now. Already, I mean, we're experiencing a surge demand. We're seeing that, I mean, the larger logistics may still struggle at some places because a lot of industries are not transporting stuff as much as needed. Uh, but look, what's happening around is everyone's becoming e-commerce. Local Kirana store. Earlier, if I needed something, I would go there, the touch and feel. I would go to a retail store. I would love to take my kids there. Today, I'm saying as much stuff that I can get to my home is best. Now, how does it happen? That happens through e-commerce logistics. So a Kirana store, a clothing store, you name a brand, and they're all gunning into it. Customers for almost like a month or two, they were forced to stay back at home. That kind of got them to experience the online retail, the online e-commerce, and those habits have kind of changed. I mean, pre-pandemic and current situation, our organization is almost delivering double. We're already 2x of what we used to deliver. Those numbers are encouraging. What it also does at the same point of time is that it's not just one segment. So uh, we were earlier more focused on the delivery for our prime customers like Amazon, Cart, Myntra, Bong, and many more. I mean, we've got a list of almost 3,000 plus customers. What's happening is hyper-local as another part in this is now getting added as well. So you're delivering grocery to homes, and people are demanding not just in metro, by the way. This is phenomena across. And I mean, for Ecom Express as an organization, we have an ability to touch 92% of India every day. That's the kind of expanse we have. I mean, 2,700 offices with almost about a 35,000 plus workforce. And we pick up and we deliver anywhere. So what happens when you have a demand building up? It's not just here in Delhi or a Bangalore. You go to a Jhumri Talaya, you go to a northeast uh, province, which is somewhere in the midst of it. You go to a Pondicherry, you go to a Chennai, you go to a Jammu Kashmir. It's everywhere. People need stuff to be delivered to them. So net, this industry is actually seeing a great surge in demand, and I think it's also satisfying somewhere because you're able to get your people to stay at home, and still there is somebody who comes and delivers delight. So it's growing, aggressively growing, and probably one of the few industries which is able to create a lot of livelihood and financial positivity even in these pandemic times.
So I'm glad that you touched upon that last bit, that you feel that this industry has contributed positively towards creating more livelihoods. I'm sure everybody in today's discussion are keen to know specifics around it. So in your estimate, one of course is the kind of surge in terms of new employment opportunities that ecom as an organization is witnessing or is likely to. But what about the entire e-commerce industry per se? I mean, do you have some estimates or some idea in terms of what could be the possible surge in terms of employment demand? And the second question, which I will add to it, do you think to what degree this demand can compensate for the loss of jobs that are happening, let's say, in some of these sectors like retail?
Mhm. So look, there is a very clear upward trend coming in e-commerce industry. Related to that, the logistics is a part of that. If you book a packet, you have to deliver it. Uh, Logistics will always be seen as a key enabler. I mean, either normal retail, a brick and mortar, or a e-commerce retail, you got to deliver. Either you'll deliver it to the store and then the customer comes, or a customer buys it online and then you kind of deliver to the home or to a place. The estimates which are they're saying that this is almost going to be about 36% of growth in this sector alone. And this is retail logistics I'm talking about. I am not talking about e-commerce. That's separate.
Yeah.
And this is almost in about next 5 years. The estimate is this is going to be about a $85 billion industry only in India. Only in India. Now, what's going to happen along with this? What's also adding on is your data prices continues to go down. Players like Geo and all the telecom players, they're kind of bringing network to the rural most part. I mean, we remember when we started Com Express 7 years back, uh, we went to the rural, we opened it in the villages, and then the demand came because there was otherwise nobody who will deliver that lightning speed with that precision. So with all of that happening, actually unlock the potential across the country. So $85 billion, and in terms of the jobs, well, in the last 60 days, my company has hired almost about 10,500 fresh roles. These are new job creations. Now, I do take a pride in kind of saying these things, and also it's such a satisfying thing that while you cannot compensate for every job that is getting lost in the other sector, but look, there is a sector which is like the sunrise sector. If only one organization has done 10,500 plus jobs, which are fresh, and these are permanent in nature, by the way, this is not seasonal jobs. What happens when all the companies and this entire sector is growing? My take is there are actually lakhs and lakhs of jobs which are getting created. Now, and then there is this big billion day and the prime sale and all the commerce sale that's going to come up, which is the Diwali time. Well, Ecom Express alone is adding another 25 to 30,000 seasonal jobs starting now. The hiring has started, and this will continue till almost like November end. Now, out of those seasonal jobs, will some stay back? Well, our belief is very strong belief that the jobs will stay. The e-commerce sector has started rising at a different speed. Will this stop? We don't think so. But there are these seasonal jobs, there are these permanent jobs. Well, the country needs probably jobs in lakhs, but then to some extent, an offset can happen. And look, when one industry grows, there are also peripheral industries that grow. So the manufacturing has to continue because what will we sell online?
Right.
You have to sell those products. So the demand has to surge there as well. So one industry, as of now, creating jobs, creating livelihood to a very different level. But certainly we need the entire country and the entire industries to also kind of come up.
No, absolutely. But one of the things, which is important to remember that when jobs get created, and like you mentioned, in the last few months alone, you have added about 10,500 new jobs. What it essentially means is that we are putting money in the hands of the youth, and which means that that money can be utilized by them to spur domestic consumption. And that's exactly what the economy needs, given that there are so much negativity around job losses, layoffs, wage cuts. It's definitely a bright spot. So I think we end up usually looking at jobs at meeting a person's livelihood needs, but it has a trickle down effect far beyond and far more impactful effect on the overall economy. So I think, thank you so much for sharing with us. And I think and sharing a little bit of an optimism in an otherwise apprehensive and gloomy atmosphere all around us. But now let me get down to a little bit of specifics. Ecom is currently hiring, and I'm assuming the sector that you represent is also hiring. What kind of job roles do you think are likely to be in demand in the days to come, or is already in demand?
Sure. So Ritu, when the overall consumption goes up and when the overall organization has to put up the operational structure and all the entire organization has to perform at almost like 2x level, it is not just ground roles or the biker or non-biker roles. I mean, that always will remain my key numbers. So almost 95% or 94% roles are the ground roles. That's what it gets created. But along with this, I need to get my operational capability in terms of supervision. So the supervisory and above roles, And there's, by the way, a lot of automation coming. So we need skilled manpower, or we get people, we skill them. There is a lot of HR roles, finance roles. Interestingly, there is a lot of development roles in IT which has come up. Now, our tech center has to be beefed up to almost like 2x now. We have no time. We have to, what we had to do in like 2 years, we got to do it now. Our data sciences team has actually been doubled. Our analytics team, our strategy team. So all the functions around the customer service team, the customer experience team got formed up at this time. We're talking about roles in all support functions, tech functions, roles in operational leadership, roles in AI and ML related field, which is to be done on the ground. All of these roles. So it's an array of all roles that one can think of. Opportunities are there around. My recruitment team was telling me, they said you got to beef us up as well, and that's where we need new partners. We need more people in house to manage. All of that's like coming to life.
Thanks so much. I think sort of coming to this point, one thing which we have been getting a lot of queries from our from job seekers have been, and in our past webinars have been that, you know, there certain sectors, kids have lost jobs, right? Now, your message to them that if you are hiring right now, what are the sectors whose youth or you know, ex-employees are you likely to hire? I mean, do you think that kids who are right now feeling vulnerable in certain sector can actually be an easy fit into some of your existing roles? And if they are, I think if you throw some light on it, it would be a great help to them as well.
Sure. So look, we're just 7 years old as a core e-commerce logistics sector. I don't have enough and more people available in the sector. We've always been hiring beyond sectors. So if you are minimum 10th class pass with a smartphone, with a bike, well, I need a biker. I need lots of them who can drive safely, who can be on the road and help my customer get the delight. If you're a graduate and above, I mean, if you're a PhD, it's all cross-functional. I am not looking at people only from logistics environment. I've never done logistics in my life, by the way, myself. This is my first logistics job. I've got people in the leadership team at every layer in the company. We do not hire pure logistics commerce experience, except for some roles in operations. We need fresh thoughts. We need fresh minds. So if you look at a role on my company website and you see that this is a skill matching, we work on skill, we work on knowledge. Degrees, by the way, are there as a gate criteria for some roles. Otherwise, what we're trying to do, you get the skill and the knowledge. The rest we build with you. So Ritu, in a nutshell, it's industry agnostic for us. That's what we believe in. And especially in this time, there are 2-3 things that we've done differently. One, we've said in some roles where age was a bar, we've removed that by around 10-20% bar removed. We said, let it be open. Secondly, we've said, the moment you find somebody who's not a straight fit in one role, please don't just reject or not shortlist. Look at the person for some other role. This is a time when you have the supply, which is more than demand in a lot of skill sets. We've opened the industry. There is no foundation on that.
Great news. I think perfect. Now it's more like a trick question for you. You are running a business, or you're at the helm of a team which is completely outbound. So while during COVID everybody is trying to stay indoors, you have to run a team which is 100% almost have to be outbound. And hence, how are you managing this situation in terms of what's the kind of communication? What are some maybe 2-3 specific policies that you've undertaken to keep them safe and give them that feeling of ease, and yet they are able to comfortably go out? And even if there are situations of, you know, where there are some casualties, how are you managing those situations? So if you could throw some light, I think it would be great for all of us.
Sure. So look, two aspects to it, Ritu. One, why are we here? Why are we out? My one delivery partner delivers delight to about 30 to 50 people every day. I'm making sure 30 to 50 Indian citizens stay back at home, stay safe, and we deliver to them. Otherwise, they would have come out in the public place and they would have been shopping there. Imagine what 50,000 plus people in the season time are going to do. That's the kind of scale that we're kind of building up. On my own people, very very clear. We are here to take care of our people and get them along. I've had zero fatalities till now by any direct impact or on the job. What we're doing is we have formulated a complete EHS. I have a EHS leader, Amit. Amit has been in charge of this since the pandemic started, and what we're doing very clearly is any decision that you take, first gate criteria is safety. So across the warehouses, across the delivery centers, places where we are, social distancing, use of mask, use of sanitizer, the basics. Our belief is it's all about basics. You take care of your basic things around the precautions, you're sorted. And guiding and training people. And Ritu, we do not only train our employees, by the way, we have a beautiful Family Connect program which we launched at this time. I need my employee safe back at his home as well, his or her home. So we're talking to the families, we're telling them what needs to be done and what are we doing to make sure people are safe. Uh, all said and done, is there a risk? Of course. When my people go onto the ground and they meet people, they go to multiple touch points. There is a risk, and that is where I think the youth of the country, they're very very smart. You tell them and you make them understand in simple language and why can it impact them, and they're seeing it around. They're more intelligent than probably sitting in the headquarters and kind of driving a program. These guys understand. Um, Good part is we've had cases, but our recovery rate is even better than the country recovery rate. And we ground people. If we find one case, we sanitize, we ground. Unless quarantine period is over, we don't allow them to work with us or with anyone else as well. We'll secure their payment. If they're financially secured, they know that they're not going anywhere.
Great. So I think we cannot close today's discussion without having some discussion on wages. So I have two, three perspective or angles on this wage question. One, of course, is that I think almost pretty much every industry, barring maybe a couple, have been impacted by the reverse migration issue. First and foremost, I'd like to understand how much it got impacted. And because of that, has there been any impact on your current wage levels? Have you been finding it difficult to find talent, though you've just shared that you've hired 10,500? But or do you anticipate in the days to come, because of this reverse migration issue, some pressure on wage levels? And secondly, I think everybody would like to know that what is the kind of earning potential they should expect to become, I mean, especially I'm not talking about all layers. And let's say delivery agents, where I think you're hiring the most. What could be the kind of earning potential they should anticipate? So I have different layers to this question.
Sure. So answering the first one, see the migrant population going back. Personally, I just feel we could have done much better. But there are decisions that happen, and I think that's happened. We can't change the history. For us, number one, when we reopened operations, on the day one, I had 93% of my employee population back to work. We have migrants as well, but by the way, we almost keep 70% people on roll. And our promise is very clear, be it an on roll or an off roll, our employees are treated equally with respect, and our payments have been consistent to them, be it incentives, be it salary. That's the kind of comfort they have. In terms of migrant population, are we dependent on them? Of course we are. The only difference is my 70% of offices are actually in rural. So I take the jobs to the rural India. I try avoiding as much as I need to get rural India to metros and one, which is even costlier. They work here and then they kind of are called migrant population. We do use them in metro and tier one at some locations where supply and demand is, of course, disbalanced. You can't help it, be it a Bilaspur or a Bhiwandi or a Lucknow or a Patna or a Kolkata or a Bangalore or a Hyderabad. We do have a lot of these centers which are can be as big as one center having 2,000 people working as well. There we do have migrant population. We are working very closely with Logistics Skill Council and Ministry of Labor. We've given them our demand of almost 15,000 plus people, which we need from the migrant workforce to come back. And we said we'll take care of them. They come back. We've got nearby villages where we kind of settle them, and they know that it's an assured job for a long term. If they come back, I think the key reason why they went back was because they were not sure whether it's going to continue as a job or not. I've got a lot of people who never went back. They're there. They're now seeking leaves to go back and meet people because it's unlocked down. But look, this will continue to happen. Migrants, do we need them? Metro tier one, yes. That's where I'm seeking, and I almost need 15,000 plus of them. Logistics Skill Council, Ministry, and partners like Team Lease for us, Ritu. I think that's where we need to bring people back. If the industry has to run, getting people for me wasn't difficult, by the way, because I've been hiring since the time no one's hiring and people were out of job. So the word of mouth's happening, people are confident. However, we need to get this entire industry and the entire paraphernalia out. For that, the migrant population is a key. When I talk to a local manufacturer, let's say in Faridabad or Delhi, they're crying loud. They're saying that we don't have enough labor to actually start our work. So while government wants us to start it, we don't know how to start it. So I think the government will have to take more and more steps, and we as corporates hold equal responsibility. We can't just give it to the government to say you do everything for us. We are a developing nation, so we'll have to partner. That's the first question answered, Ritu, and in interest of time, I'm just trying to kind of. The second question you had was on the minimum wage and the impact if we see. So look, our belief as an organization is that a minimum wage is a wage that you need to survive in a particular location.
Right.
That may not have got revised for a while, and the realities on ground are different.
Right.
So we do apply fair wage at a lot of places. It's all about demand and supply, and also a minimum standard of living that I want my person to enjoy, so that the person does not think of anything which is unethical or anything wrong.
Right.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to the government telling us when the minimum wages go up, there is a minimum wage code that's going to be the reality. At the same time, 45-50% of cost in my industry is manpower.
Right.
But look, if it's about getting people the right money to live the right life, if I deserve it and I want it, it's just fair to actually want it for every person in the country. Will it go up because of the pandemic? Well, there are temporary shifts, more so for unorganized players that I've kind of observed. For organized players, I think it's not a very big impact unless you don't have a strategy or a plan which is not like smart.
Great. One question which has been playing on my mind for a while, of course, is that yours is an industry which you, like rightly mentioned, is a manpower intensive. 45% of your internal costs are manpower. But how are you leveraging technology in the current situation and times? And are there any specific initiative from an HR perspective you're looking at to improve productivity of your current workforce?
Sure. So look, as an industry, we'll be dead without technology.
Right.
That's very clear. So everything that we do, so it's a paperless transaction from the time a customer orders to the time the customer gets the order. This is pure paperless. It's all on the app, on mobile, on computers. There are scanners that work. So we've been investing, and we are bringing in huge investment into sorter technology. There is a lot of work on data sciences that's happening. There is a lot of work on in terms of automating systems at the warehouse, in the delivery center, as much as possible, You don't have to toggle between a laptop or a desktop and a mobile. Everything comes on like a scanner machine. So a lot of that development, and my tech team, my development team, data sciences team, they're always busy augmenting future into the current and what customer needs. At the same time, in HR, what today I have 2,700 locations where attendance is not marked on register at all, and it is inside my system. It's easy. It's biometric driven, and and we are moving towards no thumb impression and only face recognition. So you come in and I also don't want my people to actually stand in a queue and get the attendance. You move when the camera captures you. That's like the first step. You save time. The second is all the apps and all the automation and getting people to work with that. Productivity is bound to increase. So it's not about a HR measure, if I must say. It's more around giving a lot of self-service, giving a lot of autonomy to the system, where a person is not dependent on an HR resource to solve, but it's all on the system and the app. And then of course the technology overall, in terms of a person from the in the morning when the person comes to the work location till the time the person goes back from the work location, I don't want person to ask questions. The
Right.
person should get solutions on the system online.
Great, thank you so much. With due permission from the attendees as well as you, Saurav, I'm going to take maybe 8 more minutes because there are some interesting questions which have come up, and then we can wrap it up. There is a question raised by Vikas Relhan. Great session, Saurav. My question is, do you see long-range consumer behavior shift post-COVID and continuity of D2C last-mile deliveries? In case D2C is an efficient model, do you see customers benefiting out of reduced cost to factory to customer?
Hi, hey Vikas. Vikas, there is definitely a shift that's happening. It's been happening over the years. The pandemic has only catapulted it to a different trajectory with greater speed. Behaviors don't change easily. If it happens, it is we believe it's a permanent shift, and that's based on what we've been seeing over the past few years as well. Uh, and what was the second part of the question? The first part I could remember.
The first part of the question, and the second is D2C is an efficient model. Do you see customers benefiting out of reduced cost to factory to customer?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about the scale, because when the scale will go up, the cost of delivery, the cost of running this entire operation, it will come down. I mean, we keep hearing this industry burns money in delivering because the customer is not going to pay for delivery right now, but eventually it's a customer behavior shift. There are some places where we actually pay to get the stuff delivered at home as well. When we get used to it, you're not burning your fuel, you're not burning your time, and you're getting everything at home. The scale will drive benefits to the consumer, to the retailer, to the logistics partner. Everyone's going to get it. China showed us the scale. US showed us the scale, and I think those industries have been those countries have been benefiting out of it.
Great. We have T.H. Rahman. He's very keen to say what's behind you in your, we can see respect, but he wants to see what's on your board. So maybe if you could turn a little bit, he can just see. So Rahman, he's shown you the board behind him.
Here's my diversity delivery partner. We've got a lot of females, and we call them female warriors. Delivering a shipment to a remote area to a lady who's probably 70 plus, but that's the future customer. When you go to Bihar and two-thirds of Bihar,
Sort of come closer to the laptop. Come closer to the laptop. I think.
All right. Yeah. So we've got different age groups of customer coming, and this is, by the way, part of one of our values. We say respect for internal, external customers both, and it's all about creating delight. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I think last question out of self-interest before I let go of you. You have been somebody who've been you've been, as a matter of fact, a great ambassador for staffing. across your different organizations that you worked with, and especially organized formal staffing. Now, why do you think you are such a big advocate for that? I mean, what's the benefit? Like, there could be a lot of people who've never used this before, but what's in it for any other organization, for example?
Sure. So, Ritu, I've always been of the belief that if you really want to create an impact in an organization, there are two things that are most important. One, get the right people. Second, keep the right people. Now, this staffing at a mass level, it is extremely exciting. It is extremely exciting in terms of how do you make sure that across the countries or within a country, you find those people who are either ready to work now or they're capable of working. And it's a beautiful project planning and a program management and get the right partners. And if you want to get the country to the next level, get the youth the right job. People who are employable or have a potential to be employed, if you can skill them and get them into the roles, there is nothing better than that. That has always been enticing for me. And of course, this skill set, I think, from a selfish point of view, I think this is something that it's like a sales thing. You're selling the livelihood to a person who needs it. So probably I'm an HR professional, but always had to be a sales professional. So the HR plus sales getting combined is getting me a lot of excitement into this.
Great. You did bring in a little bit about the diversity aspect, showing us that background picture. Would you be able to give us some insight in terms of what is essentially the diversity percentage out of the total workforce? And do you have any goals and targets on this?
As of now, very bad, I would say. I mean, what this industry has a potential to do versus what this is doing right now is probably poles apart right now. We've just formulated a formal diversity and inclusion specialist at an India level. Chaya Kamboj is my leader for India. We're backed by CDC as an investor who actually have given us goals from the board. As of now, we've done some experiments and it is beautiful results in warehouses or in delivery. Of course, not compromising the safety aspect for my female warriors. The results are very, very encouraging. In my biggest center of the country, which is my mother hub in Bilaspur, I've got 350 females working. They are all much more productive. I mean, all respect to my male colleagues. Uh, Diversity as an agenda is something that is big on our mind, backed by the promoters, backed by the investors. Where will it go? We have percentages that we have defined across the level.
No.
Very clearly, 25% is a minimum that I want, and we would probably be the flag bearers in this industry. Uh, I'm actually scouting for it. I would take this opportunity to request everyone across. I need more and more female uh, and diversity into the organization. And eventually, this is the first step. Diversity for us eventually will go into a much more granularity. Why only two gender? Why not three genders? All are welcome. We believe this company, this industry, has got place for everyone.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Saurav. I mean, I had a great time in these quick fire questions with you. Do you have any closing remarks for all of us? Any inputs, anything that helps strengthen the Putting India Back to Work agenda?
Thanks, Ritu. And look, always a pleasure, and I loved it totally. My closing remarks, look, we as an organization, I've been talking about Ecom Express throughout the discussion. But one thing that I will tell everyone is there is no dearth of jobs and livelihood. The only one thing that we all need to start thinking differently. It's not about the education qualification. It's about the skill. The future is about the skill. If you have a particular aspect that you work on, know two more things at least. One, cross skill yourself of at least about knowing something else. There is no job which is big or small. The second thing is understand your business. You can be at any level. Learn about your business before you learn about your job. you will never ever look back in your life. And it is for everyone. A biker needs to know what this industry does. The CEO or the function head or any leader also needs to know the business in exactly the same terminology. A data scientist, an analyst, a developer cannot add value if the person can't live the dream and can't understand what the company and the industry is about. So I think that's my mantra. India will get back to work. I have absolutely no doubts about it. We are a very, very entrepreneurial country. A couple of viruses can't disturb us too much. We're used to a lot more tough environments to be handled. But at the same time, don't be overconfident. We got to be safe. It is not about getting out on the road without any precautions. Very critical to be safe, but at the same time, be bullish and keep reading, keep learning. There's no dearth of livelihood out there.
Thank you so much. Really good to end on that positive note and buoyant note. And I think also thank you so very much to be part of this in the first edition, Saurabh. And I hope to catch up with you again in 3 months.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you will now, but in the next 3 months, I'm assuming you'll add another 20,000. Please do. And for the rest of you who are part of this, I think we will be doing this every 2 weeks. So the next one that we are looking to do would be in 2 weeks, same time, Thursday, 12 o'clock. So sort of also do talk to others about this session. And if you think that we should invite anybody in particular who's an expert across different industries, please do let me know. I would be really invite them over. And even from your organization, if you have anybody, like you mentioned about Chaya, if there is anyone else that you think we can bring to have an extremely focused discussion around what they are doing in their respective function, I'll be happy to do that. Thank you so much.
It'll be a pleasure. Thank you very much, and it was lovely.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe, everyone.